The rain had started before sunrise. It wasn't the violent kind that flooded streets or knocked out power. It was the slow, steady rain that coated every surface in silver and made the city of Spokane, Washington, seem unusually quiet. At exactly 6:17 a.m., security cameras outside St. Gabriel Medical Center captured an elderly man walking toward the emergency entrance. He wasn't running. He wasn't asking for help. He wasn't even wearing shoes. His bare feet slapped softly against the wet concrete as he crossed the parking lot. Hospital employees would later say there was something unforgettable about the way he walked. Not weak. Not confused. Deliberate. Purposeful. He wore faded blue jeans, a weathered leather vest over a black flannel shirt, and a gray beard that reached almost to the center of his chest. Deep wrinkles covered his face, but his blue eyes were sharp. The security guard inside the entrance barely looked up. The hospital saw dozens of unusual visitors every day. Another elderly man wasn't cause for concern. "Morning, sir," the guard said. The old man nodded. "I need to speak to someone. Are you checking in?" "No." "Visiting a patient?" "No." "What can we help you with?" The old man looked directly into the guard's eyes. "I'm here because someone inside this hospital murdered a man." Silence. The guard laughed nervously. "Sir, if this is some kind of joke." "I don't joke." The old man continued walking. The guard stepped in front of him. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stop." The old man stopped instantly. He didn't appear angry. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he slowly looked down at his own bare feet. Then back at the guard. "I walked 12 miles without shoes because I promised someone I would never ride again until I finished what I started." The sentence made no sense. But something about the way he said it made the guard hesitate. Within minutes, hospital security escorted the elderly stranger into a small interview room while administrators decided what to do. No one realized detectives would soon be on their way. At 8:05 a.m., Detective Ryan Keller received the call. Hospital disturbance. Possible mentally unstable elderly male. Claims of murder. Ryan almost ignored it. Hospitals received strange visitors every week. Most involved confused patients, family arguments, or mental health crises. But one sentence from the dispatcher changed everything. "The man refuses to give his name," she said. He only said this. Ryan waited. "Tell Detective Keller the river still remembers 1982. Ryan froze. No one outside the department should have known about 1982. Especially not that phrase. The river still remembers. Those words appeared in a forgotten homicide file buried in police archives. A file Ryan had reopened only 3 weeks earlier. 44 years earlier. A fisherman discovered a motorcycle lying half-submerged beneath an old bridge outside Spokane. Nearby, investigators recovered the body of a young man. No wallet. No fingerprints in any database. No witnesses. Only one sentence carved into the motorcycle's fuel tank. The river remembers. The murder had never been solved. Ryan arrived at St. Gabriel Medical Center less than 20 minutes later. The old man sat calmly inside the interview room. Still barefoot. Still perfectly still. He looked at Ryan before Ryan spoke. "Took you long enough." Ryan pulled out a chair. "You know my name." "I know more than your name." "You said someone here committed murder." "I did." "When?" 44 years ago." Ryan stared. "That's impossible." "No." The old man leaned forward. "It's simply inconvenient." Outside the room, hospital administrators watched through the glass. Chief Administrator Linda Brooks folded her arms. "This man is wasting everyone's time." Security Supervisor Carlos shook his head. "I don't know." "What?" "He doesn't act confused." "No. He acts like someone waiting for everyone else to catch up." Ryan opened his notebook. "Let's start simple. What's your name?" The old man smiled faintly. "Names don't matter. They do to police." "Not today." Ryan sighed. "Fine. Why are you here?" "Because a man died believing justice would come. And I promised him I'd make sure it did." Hours passed. The old man answered questions with unusual precision. He remembered exact dates, exact times, street names. license plate numbers from decades ago. He described neighborhoods that no longer existed. Ryan checked several details. Every one of them was accurate. Yet the man refused to explain how he knew any of it. Meanwhile, inside the hospital archives, a young records clerk named Emily noticed something strange. Someone had requested patient files from 1982 only days earlier. Hospital policy required electronic logs. But these requests had never appeared in the system. Instead, entire folders were missing. She checked again. Missing. Not misplaced. Gone. Back in the interview room, Ryan placed an old crime scene photograph on the table. This motorcycle. You recognize it? The old man's eyes softened. I rode beside it. Ryan's pulse quickened. You knew the victim? I knew everyone who rode with him. Were you part of a motorcycle club? The old man remained silent. Then finally answered. A long time ago. What club? It doesn't exist anymore. Ryan noticed faded stitching on the leather vest. Most patches had been carefully removed years earlier. Only faint outlines remained. Whatever symbols had once been there had been intentionally erased. Across town, someone was watching. Inside a black pickup truck parked 2 blocks from the hospital, a man lowered binoculars. He picked up a burner phone. He came. A woman's voice answered. Are you certain? He walked in exactly like he said he would. Silence. Then, don't let him leave alive. The call ended. Ryan had no idea danger was already closing in. He continued asking questions. You told security someone in this hospital murdered a man. Yes. Who? The old man slowly looked toward the hallway. Not at Ryan. Past him. As if watching someone standing outside the room. Ryan turned. Nobody was there. When he looked back, the old man whispered only 4 words. He's still working here. Ryan frowned. Who? Before the old man could answer, the lights flickered. For just 1 second. Emergency power activated. Then returned to normal. Every monitor inside the hospital briefly went black, including security cameras. Exactly 18 seconds. No one thought much of it. Until security supervisor Carlos checked the recordings. Those 18 seconds had completely disappeared. Not frozen. Not corrupted. Erased. Deliberately. At that exact moment, 3 floors above the emergency department, a maintenance worker quietly unlocked an old storage room that hadn't been opened in years. Inside sat dozens of dusty cardboard boxes. He ignored them, walking directly to a loose concrete block behind an old boiler. He pulled it away. Inside the wall was a rusted metal lockbox. His hands trembled. Someone had beaten him to it. The lockbox was empty. Only a folded piece of yellow paper remained. He unfolded it. For handwritten words. He's finally telling them. The maintenance worker's face drained of color. He crushed the note in his fist, then reached into his pocket for his phone. There's a problem, he whispered. He remembers everything. Detective Ryan Keller stared at the elderly man. Outside the interview room, the hospital buzzed with its usual morning routine. Nurses hurried down hallways. Stretchers rolled across polished floors. Visitors waited anxiously in crowded reception areas. Yet inside the small room, time seemed frozen. The old man looked toward the one-way mirror. They're listening, he said quietly. Ryan glanced at the glass. Hospital administration always listens. The old man shook his head. I'm not talking about them. Ryan frowned. What do you mean? Someone in this building has been waiting more than 40 years for me to show up. A cold silence settled over the room. Ryan pushed a photograph across the table. It showed a young man in his 20s standing beside a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The picture had been recovered from the victim's belongings decades earlier. The old man's weathered hands trembled for the first time. His eyes filled with emotion. Tom. You knew him. He was like my little brother. Ryan watched carefully. This is Thomas Reed? The old man nodded. He didn't deserve what happened. You never came forward. I couldn't. Why not? Because everyone who tried disappeared. Ryan leaned back. He had interviewed hundreds of suspects over his career. People lied. People cried. People panicked. But this man did none of those things. He simply carried the weight of something he'd hidden for nearly half a century. "Tell me your name." The old man took a deep breath. "My name is Samuel Walker." Ryan immediately recognized it. Not from criminal files. From an old witness statement buried inside the 1982 investigation. Samuel Walker had been listed as missing. No one had ever found him. "You've been alive this whole time?" Samuel gave a faint smile. Some people wanted to make sure nobody knew. 44 years earlier, Samuel and Tom had belonged to a small motorcycle club that crossed the Pacific Northwest. Contrary to rumors, they weren't drug traffickers. They weren't killers. They were veterans, mechanics, and long-haul truck drivers who loved the freedom of the open road. Then one night, everything changed. Tom stumbled onto something he was never supposed to see. Back in the present, Ryan asked, "What did Tom discover?" Samuel looked toward the hospital window. "A patient." Ryan blinked. "A patient?" "No," Samuel corrected himself. "A witness pretending to be a patient." Ryan frowned. "What witness?" Samuel lowered his voice. "The only man who saw a powerful businessman commit murder." Ryan felt his pulse quicken. "You mean this all started inside the hospital?" Samuel nodded. The hospital wasn't the crime scene. It was the hiding place. Ryan immediately called Detective Lisa Monroe. "I need every archived record connected to St. Gabriel Medical Center from 1981 through 1983. That's thousands of files." "I know." "Why?" "Because I think our cold case never left the hospital." Meanwhile, Chief Administrator Linda Brooks watched security footage in her office. She replayed Samuel's arrival 3 times. Something bothered her. He never once looked around the building. He walked directly toward the emergency entrance. Almost like he'd memorized every hallway decades earlier. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Yes," a calm male voice spoke. "If Samuel Walker is still alive, your hospital is finished." The line went dead. Linda immediately locked her office door. For the first time that morning, she looked afraid. Across town, detectives reopened a sealed evidence warehouse. Dust covered everything. Boxes labeled 1982 sat untouched. Officer Daniel Brooks carefully lifted one container onto a table. Inside were photographs. A blood-stained denim jacket. A broken motorcycle mirror. And one cassette tape. Written across the label. "Interview, witness #4. Ryan inserted the tape into an old recorder. Static. Then a man's frightened voice. "If anything happens to me, look inside the hospital." The recording suddenly stopped. The remaining tape had been cut out. Someone had physically removed the ending decades ago. Ryan slammed the recorder shut. Someone edited police evidence. Lisa looked stunned. "Who had access?" Ryan answered quietly. "Someone inside law enforcement. Or someone inside the hospital." Back at St. Gabriel Medical Center, Samuel quietly drank a cup of coffee. A young nurse entered. She couldn't have been older than 25. "My grandfather was a biker," she smiled. Samuel returned the smile. "Was he?" "He passed away last year." "I'm sorry." "He always said bikers never break promises." Samuel stared into the coffee cup. "Some promises take 40 years. The nurse noticed scars across both of Samuel's hands. Old scars. Burn scars. Knife scars. The kind earned over a lifetime. "You've lived quite a life." Samuel answered softly. "Long enough to bury everyone I loved." Before she could reply, the fire alarm suddenly activated. Sirens echoed through every hallway. Patients panicked. Doctors rushed to emergency procedures. Hospital staff began evacuating entire floors. Ryan immediately stood. "This isn't a drill." Security guards unlocked the interview room. Everyone poured into the corridor. Smoke filled part of the lower level. Firefighters arrived within minutes. But something felt wrong. There was no fire. Only smoke. Artificial smoke. Someone had triggered the evacuation intentionally. Ryan looked around frantically. "Where's Samuel?" The chair was empty. The old man was gone. Security footage showed him calmly walking toward an old maintenance stairwell. Barefoot. Alone. Ryan sprinted downstairs. The hallway echoed with alarms. At the end of the corridor, Samuel stood before a rusted steel door marked SUB basement, authorized personnel only. He reached out and touched the faded paint. It used to be blue, he whispered. Ryan caught up. Samuel. Samuel didn't turn around. This door wasn't always locked. What is it? A tunnel. Ryan frowned. What tunnel? It connected the hospital to the old county morgue. Ryan's eyes widened. The tunnel was sealed 30 years ago. Samuel smiled sadly. Officially. Ryan forced the heavy door open. The smell hit instantly. Moisture. Rust. Decades of neglect. Flashlights illuminated a narrow concrete passage disappearing into darkness. Footprints. Fresh footprints. Someone had been down there recently. Very recently. Ryan radioed for backup. Within minutes, officers entered the tunnel. About 200 feet inside, Detective Lisa's flashlight reflected off something metallic. A revolver. Covered in dust. Evidence technicians carefully collected it. Nearby, they found another object. A leather motorcycle glove. Inside the glove, a driver's license. Thomas Reed, the murder victim. Ryan couldn't believe it. This has been here for 44 years. Samuel quietly answered. No. Ryan looked at him. It was placed here last night. Silence. Someone had moved evidence after all these years. Which meant the killer or someone protecting the killer was still alive. Suddenly, a loud metallic bang echoed through the tunnel. The heavy door behind them slammed shut. Darkness. Complete darkness. Their radios crackled. Then died. Someone had cut the power. Ryan drew his flashlight. Nobody move. Footsteps echoed somewhere ahead. Slow. Deliberate. Not running. Walking. Samuel whispered. He's here. Ryan aimed his flashlight into the darkness. Nothing. Only silence. Then, a deep voice echoed through the tunnel. You should have stayed gone, Sam. Samuel closed his eyes. I've waited 44 years to hear your voice again. The unseen figure laughed. You'll be dead before sunrise. The flashlight beam caught a shadow disappearing around the far corner. Ryan shouted. Police. Stop. The detectives chased the figure deeper into the abandoned tunnel. Without realizing they were running straight into a trap. The voice echoed through the darkness. You should have stayed gone, Sam. Detective Ryan Keller raised his flashlight toward the sound, but the beam revealed only crumbling concrete walls and drifting dust. The tunnel stretched ahead like the throat of some forgotten beast. Water dripped steadily from rusted pipes overhead. The air smelled of mildew, old metal, and secrets. Police. Ryan shouted. Come out with your hands where I can see them. No answer. Only the fading sound of footsteps somewhere deeper inside. Samuel Walker remained perfectly still. His blue eyes stayed fixed on the darkness. Don't chase him, he said quietly. Ryan looked back. He's getting away. Samuel shook his head. That's exactly what he wants. Lisa Monroe caught up with the others, breathing hard. The backup units can't reach us. Ryan checked his radio again. Nothing but static. Our signal's blocked. Lisa looked around. Concrete this thick shouldn't block everything. Samuel knelt near the wall. He brushed away years of dust with his hand. Hidden beneath the grime was a newer cable running along the tunnel. He touched it carefully. This wasn't here in 1982. Ryan crouched beside him. What is it? Signal jammer. Lisa stared. Someone installed equipment down here? Samuel nodded. And not very long ago. The detectives followed the cable. It disappeared through a rusted maintenance doorway that had been welded shut decades earlier. Except, the welds were fresh. Someone had cut them recently. Ryan pushed. The heavy door groaned open. Beyond it lay a room that wasn't shown on any hospital blueprint. The chamber looked untouched by time. Old wooden desks. Metal filing cabinets. Shelves lined with dusty patient records. A faded calendar still hung on the wall. October 1982. Lisa whispered. This place shouldn't exist. Samuel answered. It wasn't supposed to. Ryan swept his flashlight across the room. One desk looked different. Everything else was covered in thick dust. That desk had been cleaned recently. Someone had been working there. Inside the drawer sat a laptop. Modern. Still warm. Ryan exchanged a glance with Lisa. He was just here. Forensic technician David Harper carefully opened the laptop. The screen lit immediately. No password. Only a single folder. Project River. Ryan opened it. Hundreds of scanned documents appeared. Old medical files. Police reports. Death certificates. Photographs. Every file connected to unsolved deaths stretching back more than 40 years. Lisa looked stunned. This isn't one cover-up. Ryan nodded slowly. It's dozens. Samuel walked toward a bulletin board mounted against the far wall. He stared silently. Photographs covered every inch. Doctors. Judges. Police officers. Business owners. Politicians. Some faces had red circles around them. Others had black X marks. Ryan approached. What is this? Samuel didn't answer immediately. Finally he whispered. They kept track of everyone. Everyone involved? No. Everyone who knew. One photograph stopped Ryan cold. It showed Detective Michael Keller, Ryan's father. Missing since 1991. Officially presumed dead. Ryan reached toward the picture with shaking hands. What? Samuel closed his eyes. He got closer than anyone. Ryan turned sharply. You knew my father? Samuel nodded. He was the last honest detective before you. Ryan's heart pounded. My father disappeared investigating this? Yes. And you never came forward? I tried. Samuel slowly rolled up his left sleeve. A long scar stretched from his wrist to his shoulder. They made sure I never tried again. Lisa carefully searched another filing cabinet. She found dozens of cassette tapes, each labeled with dates, each containing recorded conversations. One tape stood out. Detective Michael Keller, private interview. Ryan inserted it into an old recorder. Static filled the room. Then, his father's voice. If anyone hears this, trust Samuel Walker. Ryan froze. He hadn't heard his father's voice since he was a child. The recording continued. The corruption reaches farther than we imagined. This hospital has been protecting witnesses and hiding murderers. A loud crash interrupted the recording. Someone shouted. Then, the tape ended abruptly. Ryan couldn't speak. Lisa gently placed a hand on his shoulder. He was trying to expose them. Ryan nodded silently. Samuel looked away. I failed him. Suddenly, the laptop screen changed by itself. No one touched it. A live camera feed appeared. Hospital security footage. Someone was watching them. Then words slowly appeared across the monitor. You are too late. The lights flickered. Again. Then every monitor in the room shut off. The signal jammer whined loudly before falling silent. Power had been cut. From somewhere above them, a deep rumble echoed through the tunnel. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling. Lisa looked upward. What was that? Samuel answered immediately. They're collapsing the tunnel. Ryan's eyes widened. They're trying to bury us. The detectives sprinted toward the exit. Behind them, a deafening roar filled the passage. Concrete exploded from the ceiling. Steel pipes crashed onto the floor. Dust swallowed everything. Ryan grabbed Samuel by the arm. This way. The elderly man pulled free. No. Ryan stopped. What are you doing? Samuel pointed toward a narrow side corridor. There's another exit. How do you know? I helped build it. Ryan stared. You built these tunnels? Samuel nodded. I worked construction before I rode motorcycles. They hurried into the narrow passage. Unlike the main tunnel, this corridor was clean. Too clean. Fresh footprints covered the dusty floor. Someone had been using it regularly. At the end stood a reinforced steel door. Electronic keypad. Modern security camera. Lisa frowned. This definitely wasn't here 40 years ago. Samuel looked directly into the camera. They know we're here. The keypad suddenly beeped. The lock clicked open. Nobody had entered a code. Ryan slowly pulled the door open. Beyond it, a brightly lit underground laboratory stretched beneath the hospital. Rows of computers. Medical equipment. Industrial freezers. Locked evidence cabinets. None of it appeared abandoned. Coffee still steamed from a mug sitting beside one computer. Someone had left only moments earlier. David opened one freezer. Instead of medical supplies, it contained sealed evidence boxes. Police evidence. Some dated only months ago. Ryan read the labels. Missing. Destroyed. Case closed. Lisa whispered. They've been stealing evidence from active investigations. Then Samuel stopped walking. He stared at a photograph hanging on the far wall. A much younger version of himself. Standing beside 3 other men. All smiling. All wearing matching leather vests bearing the insignia of a fictional motorcycle club known as the Iron Riders. One face had been scratched out completely. Samuel reached toward it. His voice barely rose above a whisper. He was supposed to be dead. Ryan looked closer. Who is he? Samuel swallowed hard. The man who killed Tom Reed. Ryan's pulse quickened. You know his name? Samuel nodded. I've always known. Then why didn't you tell anyone? Samuel looked toward the laboratory door. Because he wasn't working alone. At that exact moment, a loud metallic click echoed behind them. The laboratory doors slammed shut. Red emergency lights began flashing. A calm computerized voice filled the underground chamber. Containment protocol activated. Ryan turned toward the sealed exit. Someone had locked them inside. Red emergency lights bathed the underground laboratory in a crimson glow. The steel doors slammed shut with a thunderous crash, sealing Detective Ryan Keller, Detective Lisa Monroe, forensic technician David Harper, and 90-year-old Samuel Walker inside. A computerized voice echoed through the room. Containment protocol activated. Security response in progress. Ryan rushed to the control panel beside the door, but every command required a security code. We're locked in, Lisa said. Samuel looked around the laboratory with calm determination. They're not trying to arrest us, he said quietly. They're trying to erase us. #, the hidden archive. David opened another evidence cabinet. Inside were hundreds of carefully labeled folders. Some belonged to unsolved murders. Others contained missing person investigations. But one drawer stood apart. Its label read, Project River. Ryan opened it. The first file contained a map of Spokane marked with red circles. Each circle represented a location where evidence had mysteriously disappeared over the last 40 years. The second folder contained financial records. Millions of dollars had flowed through shell companies connected to a charitable medical foundation that secretly controlled hidden properties beneath the hospital. The third folder held photographs. Doctors, police officers, lawyers, business executives. Each photograph had handwritten notes describing whether the person had cooperated or refused. Lisa whispered. This wasn't just one corrupt employee. Samuel nodded. It became an organization. #, the real killer. Ryan picked up one final file. Across the cover was a familiar name. Dr. Charles Whitmore. Chief surgeon. Retired 18 years earlier. Officially deceased. Ryan frowned. He's been dead for years. Samuel slowly shook his head. No. He disappeared. Ryan stared. What do you mean? Samuel took a long breath. 44 years ago, Tom Reed accidentally witnessed Dr. Whitmore helping a wealthy businessman cover up a murder. They used the hospital to hide the witness. They forged medical records. They moved evidence. And when Tom threatened to go to the police, Samuel's voice grew heavy. They killed him. #, a familiar face. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside the laboratory. The steel doors unlocked. They slowly slid open. Standing alone in the hallway was an elderly man in an expensive gray suit. His white hair was neatly combed. His posture remained perfectly straight. Samuel stared in disbelief. You. The man smiled. I wondered if we'd ever meet again. Ryan stepped forward. Dr. Whitmore. The man gave a slight nod. I've been called many things. Ryan drew his service weapon. You're under arrest. Whitmore laughed. For what? 44 years ago, you made sure nobody could prove anything. Samuel stepped beside Ryan. You murdered Tom. Whitmore looked at him almost sympathetically. No. I ordered it. The hallway fell silent. ##### the confession. Whitmore slowly removed a small digital recorder from his pocket. I've lived 93 years. I've buried friends. I've buried enemies. And now, I've grown tired. Ryan kept his weapon trained. Whitmore smiled. You came here looking for justice. I came here looking for peace. He pressed play. The recorder filled the corridor with voices from 1982. Doctors discussing false medical records. Police officers accepting cash. A businessman ordering witnesses to disappear. Finally, Whitmore's younger voice. Asterisk, take care of Reed tonight. Asterisk. Asterisk, no witnesses. Asterisk. Ryan looked at Samuel. This recording. Samuel nodded. I've been protecting it for 44 years. Whitmore chuckled. I always wondered where you hid it. Samuel reached into his vest. I never hid it. He produced another recorder. I carried it. For 44 years. #####, one final escape attempt. Whitmore suddenly lunged toward an emergency exit. Ryan shouted. Stop. The elderly doctor ran surprisingly fast through the underground corridor. Lisa and Ryan chased him. Samuel followed at a slower pace. Whitmore reached an old freight elevator. He pressed the button repeatedly. The doors opened. Before he could enter, Samuel spoke. Charles. Whitmore turned. For the first time, he looked frightened. Samuel stepped forward barefoot. You remember what you told Tom? Whitmore said nothing. Samuel continued. You told him no one would ever believe a biker over a respected doctor. Whitmore lowered his eyes. Samuel smiled sadly. You were wrong. Ryan handcuffed Whitmore without resistance. The chase was over. ##### the missing detective. Over the next several days, investigators searched every hidden room beneath St. Gabriel Medical Center. The underground archive yielded thousands of documents. Several previously unsolved murder investigations were reopened. Families finally learned what had happened to loved ones who had vanished decades earlier. Then forensic teams made one final discovery. Behind a sealed concrete wall lay a small hidden office. Inside was Detective Michael Keller's notebook. Ryan's father's final investigation had been preserved exactly as he left it. On the last page, Michael had written, If someone finds this, asterisk, tell Ryan never to stop asking questions. Asterisk. Ryan quietly closed the notebook. For the first time in 35 years, he knew how his father's story had ended. ##### justice. Federal investigators arrested several surviving conspirators connected to the decades-long corruption network. Former officials face charges ranging from obstruction of justice to evidence tampering and conspiracy. St. Gabriel Medical Center underwent a complete leadership overhaul. The hidden tunnels were permanently sealed. A memorial honoring victims of the cover-up was built near the hospital entrance. Tom Reed's family finally received answers they had waited more than 4 decades to hear. ##### Samuel's promise. 1 week later, Ryan found Samuel sitting on a bench overlooking the Spokane River. Still barefoot. The rain had returned. Ryan sat beside him. It's over. Samuel smiled faintly. No. Ryan looked surprised. What do you mean? Justice doesn't erase grief. It simply allows people to breathe again. Ryan nodded. My father believed you'd come back. Samuel looked toward the river. I promised Tom I would. I couldn't break my word. Ryan handed Samuel a small package. Inside was a brand new pair of leather boots. Samuel laughed softly. I've walked enough miles barefoot. Ryan smiled. I thought you might. Samuel slipped on the boots for the first time since arriving at the hospital. He stood slowly. His knees ached. His shoulders sagged with age. But his eyes looked lighter than they had in decades. ##### epilogue. Months later, Detective Ryan Keller officially closed the Project River investigation. The case had become one of the largest corruption investigations in Washington state history. Reporters often asked what finally solved a mystery that had remained buried for 44 years. Ryan always gave the same answer. It wasn't advanced technology. It wasn't luck. It was one old man who refused to forget a promise. Samuel Walker quietly disappeared from public life. No interviews. No book deals. No television appearances. Only a simple letter left on Ryan's desk. It read, Asterisk, truth takes longer to arrive than lies. Asterisk. Asterisk, but it always finds its way home. Asterisk. Ryan folded the letter and placed it inside his father's notebook. Outside, the Spokane River flowed peacefully beneath the morning sun, carrying away the echoes of a mystery that had finally been solved.